Come on. There it is. Now let's go sharing around. Alright, posted it on Twitter. I went from 1 viewer to 0 viewers.
Nice.
I don't know what that means.
Oh, it's true. Oh fuck, it's alright. Gotta get out of here.
Alright, let's not lose my bearings. Part of me goes, yeah, let's go engage with chat. And then I look at the viewer total and go, what do I do? And then I think about, hey, what's this going to be like when it's in retrospect and somebody boots up and like, I'm going to look at this old live stream and it's just silent. Oh yeah, I didn't post it in the just this one. There it is. Usually I do that as soon as I start. I'm big smart. Okay. Okay, well, I've shared it around. Ugh. So, welcome, my 0 viewers. today's Thursday, and as the scrolling thing on the bottom says, and the name of the video and the thumbnail, this is Game Dev Live. I hope to work on making video games like my Twitter handle would suggest I do, but on camera on Thursdays. Probably should talk about what I should work on. So I haven't decided what I'm gonna work on for this. One thing that's kind of sat down with me is while I'm not opposed to making fan games, I don't think I want to do that in this kind of a format. That's just asking to get shut down. It's not the kind of thing I'd be comfortable with, so I don't really want to do any like ooh, make like a fan Mario game or something. No. I also don't know if I want to work on something super big or not, depending. It could be a smaller game that I could more reasonably finish, but if that's it, what is it gonna be? I have some projects on the back burner, but most of them are a little more ambitious than a small thing. I could work on something like that, but I don't know if that's this is time or place for that. If that what people want to see. Also worth noting, while this is Game Dev Live, that doesn't mean I'm going to be sitting here coding every single time. Video game development has a large constituent of components to make a game. And, that could be art, concept art, not just the art that actually ends up in the game. Audio, music, things I'm still very much learning. And probably wouldn't prefer to do on stream until I would be more comfortable with it. But I could be writing code. I could be making assets. It depends on the art style. I could be 3D modeling. I could be making pixel art. I could be working on something like level design. Or I could be sitting here brainstorming concepts. It would be a good idea for me to try to keep it visual, no matter what I'm doing, so people aren't bored as fuck. But I do want to engage with chat. So, I'm not supposed to formally start until 3:30, or not 3:30, that's when I end. Nice. Until 12:30. So that gives me a little bit of time to just sit here, wait for people to pull in, and maybe brainstorm what I want to do. I don't know, do you have input, Red?
Uh,
Congratulations. You did it. You inputted. I'm proud of you. I don't know what kind of a small game I want to make. And if I do, I don't know what engine I want to use. So I could use Game Maker, but for personal reasons, I am trying to move away from Game Maker. I don't have a problem with using it necessarily, depending on the circumstance. But I don't like the new company they're being held by and some of the business direction they're doing. There's been some good things. I've liked a lot of the updates to the program. That's been cool. But I'm a little shaky on some things with Game Maker. But I wouldn't it's not a hard no. There's definitely reasons to do it. I would like to do Unity, and if it's going to be 3D, it probably will be in Unity. I'm trying to learn more Unity, but I am still very much a novice with that. So it's not, I can't reliably sit down and go, yeah, I can just put this together, boom, 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 and just make quick progress, which is nicer for streaming. But I at least have used it a couple of times, so I'm not like literally blind on it. And then there's Godot. I've been meaning to learn Godot at some point. I have zero experience with Godot, just none. I installed it on my computer. I have it, but I've never used it. I think I booted it up once just to make sure it works and see what the interface looked like. That's it. I hear a lot of praise for Godot, and I do think it would be worthwhile for me to experiment with it, especially since it seems to have a very similar vibe for what purpose it serves to Game Maker, while also having actual 3D support. But without the baggage I have with Game Maker, and I don't think that would change with Godot, because it's like, I believe it's open source. So, like, that's just there. Also, I think it's like truly free. There might be like some paid export tools, but I think it's literally free to make games with Godot. Game Maker, you need to pay for export tools for PC as well. I don't think Godot even needs to pay for PC export. I think it's like platform exports, which aren't even necessarily made by Godot, which is one of the downsides of it, is that it doesn't have a lot of official support for things like that, because when you're open source, it's hard to actively, be like, yeah, we're going to make a brand deal with this company to have an exporter for our program, even though our program is decentralized and not entirely within our control or tied to a company. That's not how that works. There are third-party exporters for Godot, but I am no expert on that. So I would like to learn Godot. I don't know the efficacy of sticking with it for the future. But there's a lot of nice things about it from what I understand. I don't know. I could spend time learning it. But I think things would go smoothest on stream with Game Maker. I'm not sure if I want to keep working with it. And if I want to make a 3D game, I'm just not going to use Game Maker. So, that's that. I could make a 3D game in Godot, but I think I'd prefer to do it in Unity. I don't think my first experience with Godot, I don't think I would want my first experience with learning Godot to be 3D. And I think Unity probably handles 3D better than Godot, but if you're doing like a retro aesthetic game, I think Godot's still, I've seen a lot of like retro aesthetic games made in Godot that looked really cool. Like 3D retro aesthetic. So, I don't know. Now that I've sufficiently wasted my time, let's see. Do you... Hypothetically, I could work on Of Dyson Men, but I don't think I want to do that here. You know? I mean, like, maybe I could, but I don't know. You remember that project that I've wanted to make for a long time I told you about, Mendoximus?
Hmm.
I could do some things on that. I also don't need to necessarily do the same thing every week, but then that makes it less likely things actually get done. I don't need to do all of my work on stream. This is not going to be like, yeah, I'm going to work 3 hours a week on this. Unless I make the stream like its own devoted, like, smaller project, in which case I might mostly just work on it on stream and work on other things at other times. So I kind of need to decide an approach with this. And I was hoping this would be a bit of an engagement thing with viewers. I don't have any viewers right now, so I'm talking to you, Red. Pressure's on fuck you, idiot. Strolling into a call on a goddamn Thursday morning like a dumbass.
Excuse me. It's the afternoon.
Barely. Shut up. Technically correct, and I hate you. I mean, what, do you think the cat would over there would give me better answers? He's asleep. He won't. There's also not that much going on in his head. If I worked on Mendoximus, I think I would be sitting here working on concept art, which would be me opening up a Photoshop document and starting to draw. I don't know what I would specifically work on with Of Dice and Men. I kind of liked using the blog to announce things that were a little more finalized with that, but that doesn't mean there's nothing to work on. I could just curate what task I decide to do based on what I'm willing to show, but I don't know what I would do. It's also been a long enough time because it's not been a focus for me. There's other, like, more fan stuff projects for fun I have started, but I already said I don't think it's a good idea for me to work on fan games. Again, no problem with making them, but I don't want to get DMCA'd after putting hours of work into something. Not my style. I have older projects than that, but most of them I don't think I would want to go back to. I'm gonna open up my Game Maker, see if I look through my old projects. I'm not gonna put it on stream because I don't want to share it, the file or structure on stream. I want to double check if there's any significant projects on here I'm forgetting that I started. I don't want to continue that, I don't want to continue that Game Jam thing I started. There's some cool ideas there. I don't necessarily want to work on that, particularly right now. Actually, I just remembered something that might be weirdly appropriate. That could be a perfect thing to work on for this. Okay, Red. Do you remember the Mario 3 Super Mario All-Stars battle mode? I, some time ago, had the idea of basically taking that concept and running with it to make a multiplayer battle game with multiple stages, more playable characters with differences between them, and a few more, like, interactives and items. And maybe, like, tweaking the gameplay to be a little more active or hectic. You know what I mean? And that's not a huge project, honestly. And I didn't want to make a fan game. I didn't want it to be... Like, I considered making it actually Mario, but I thought, and like, you could do some cool things just not making it Mario. I was gonna call it Da Brothers, because that was an inside joke when me and my friends discovered it about a year ago. Where we were saying that, like, reference to the Super Show opening, where we were saying we were hooked on Da Brothers, you know? Because it's just so fucking fun. So I was like, yeah, let's call it Da Brothers. And you got a bunch of playable characters. It's got, like, a vaguely urban theming, and the stages are, like, themed in, like, urban underground areas, or maybe, like, an alleyway. I don't know. And you've got maybe, like, this kind of, graffiti, like punk art aesthetic to the characters and environments. And you've got like a bunch of guys who are the brothers. I think it would be fun to have one character who's just called Sister or something along that line, who is like
Brolette.
she's it with it being the trope of the girl who's one of the guys in quotes. You know what I mean? Maybe a chick, but she's one of the brothers, you know? uh and before anybody starts getting any conflicting ideas of my stances or who I am, I also wanted to have a trans guy in there at least. Because he is truly one of the brothers. I don't know exactly how many playable characters and what it would be, but that was the thought.
Trans men do tend to get ignored a lot.
He is one of the brothers. Honestly, I think that could just be a good thing to work on for this.
I actually have a couple like ideas for trans men characters in some of my other projects, but they're not that far in development though.
So, I don't know. What do you have any opinions on that?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Also, can't help but think of Anton Ball Deluxe. They're not the same, but
It is similar in terms of like
it's building on like sort of classic
what its
arcade game stuff.
thought process. I also wanted to make it up to 4 players, not just 2.
It's fine. The main mode for Anton Ball is essentially is if you put Wario in Breakout. But the secondary mode is basically Mario Brothers, but you use a ball to throw at the enemies to knock them over.
I should take a look at that. Not just for inspiration, but also specifically to not just make that game.
Yeah.
You know? It already helps that I'm not basing it on arcade Mario Bros. I'm basing it on the battle game from Mario All-Stars. But, like, I don't know what they did. And I don't want to just copy them. It's Anton Ball Deluxe.
Yeah.
What's the name of the mode? Do you remember?
Let me check. I think the main mode is just called Anton Ball, but or Punch Ball.
Okay. Found a random person's video on Punchball. And to make this stream actually a stream, I will, at least show the video I'm watching. So let's go just... Okay, let's transition over because I don't want to just show my whole computer all the time for reasons you probably could understand. This video, let's just go and look for a moment, is by a YouTuber who just goes by C. Just want to properly credit who I'm looking at here, because I don't want to just basically steal their content and stream it. That's very that sound effect sounds like it was just ripped from Wario Land 4. I don't think it's 1-to-1, but it's like so damn close.
There are, some elements of these Wario-like games that have been that do just take samples from like Wario Land 4.
Samples are something that are considered very dubious in where they fall legally.
Yeah, like I think like in Pizza Tower, the like some of the voice samples that are used in some of Wario Land 4's tracks are just used straight up.
I guess it's where they get those samples from would be part of the can they do something about it. So we got sewers here, yeah. Just got green skin.
Yeah, I mean, Anton has red skin.
Yeah, no, it's just... Anyone with the balls to win. Ha! Ha ha! Bauble tea. Well... Why is only her hair near the hearts moving? I don't like that.
Yeah, so going on the game's Steam page, the first thing you see on the About page is, on the About This Game part is, get ready to play with your balls.
Nice. Okay, this definitely plays very close to Arcade Mario Bros, but they've seemingly removed the jump under them thing.
Yeah, it's Arcade Mario Brothers, but you throw a ball at them instead.
Okay, so the simple fact that the gameplay is built around throwing, which what I'm pitching isn't, is a significant change. Does this game have unique movesets that would also apply to this mode?
No, like you control exactly the same as the other modes.
This also, if you look at the bottom, I can tell this is based aesthetically on the GBA version of Mario Bros. Aesthetics, gameplay-wise, that is a very different version. That GBA Mario Bros. Is basically a polished-up, definitive version of the arcade game, whereas the one in Mario All-Stars is like taking that concept and springboarding on it, you know? So there definitely would be an intrinsic difference here, and this feels a lot more like a side mode than a meat content. I am curious what this would play like in a multiplayer setting, and also different stages. Because Mario Bros. Stages tend to not be very different, and I don't want to fall into that. I want to have some genuinely, like, unique stages. The layouts seem to be more creative here.
Yeah, the layouts change a lot.
That is nice. Although, wait, no. Did you... I said, did you see that? Like, you're caught up with me. But she jumped into a platform, and it, like, budged.
Yeah, does that? I don't know.
There was no enemy above them. So, like...
I don't think that can be used to flip over enemies, but I forget if that's the case.
Is this a game you played, or is it a game you just kept your eye on? I don't remember.
Yeah, I've played it.
Okay. This is the research portion.
Yeah.
Okay, those enemies are like the freezies. Except instead of ice, they're sliming the terrain.
Yeah.
Enemies is another thing I'm definitely going to want to think about. And how they work. This game definitely gets a little more inventive with some of these things. It's just the gameplay is not that significantly changed, it feels like, from Arcade Mario Bros. I just want to know if the whole point of Arcade Mario Bros. If jumping under enemies is still a thing in this. I'm still definitely keeping that.
Honestly, I could just boot up the game and test it.
Because, like, that is the point of it. Fudge Mountain. Fudge Mountain, that's ice! That seal enemy reminds me of the seal enemy they cut from the US release of Ice Climber. Because they didn't want people to think it was endorsing seal clubbing.
Jumping under an enemy causes them to turn around, but not get knocked over.
Interesting. Whatever answer that wasn't going to change that I was going to make jumping a big part of it under the enemy. Because...
Yeah.
But I was curious, especially if it would be, like, significant overlap here. But this game seems to have a very different meta to it. I'm curious about what the multiplayer of this is like.
I believe for this, it's 2-player co-op.
Is it co-op or is it co-op competitive? Or
it might be co-op competitive. I haven't played it multiplayer, but I think this mode only goes up to 2 players, but the main Anton Ball mode goes up to 4, I think.
Okay, I think
there's also versus Anton Ball, which is a competitive version of the normal Anton Ball.
Interesting. I don't think this does anything to, like, push the niche out, especially given this is not the meat of the game.
Yeah, the main mode is, the breakout one.
But I do think this gives me a bit of a perspective to push me into having a bit more of a unique direction. But I do think I should at least strive to do no worse than match the level design variety here. You know? Because this is doing what I would consider to be the amount it should be doing. I don't want to be as disparaging as saying, the bare minimum, but like,
I mean, it's a pretty small game. I would recommend, giving it a try. It is like $15, which does feel a little much for how small the game is, but it's sort of predicated on replay value. There are a ton of characters that you can unlock, but they're all just skins. And also, if you don't have anyone to play with, you don't really get 2 modes instead of the 3 modes that the game is advertising. Although you might be able to play online, but I haven't tried.
Yeah, I'm not going to worry about online in making this. if this is supposed to be a smaller project and that's so far out my wheelhouse, I'm not gonna, like, necessarily go put that pressure on myself. Another thing, I wasn't gonna do a pixel art aesthetic for this.
That can definitely help make it feel different.
It was going to be hand-drawn, maybe go for, like, those thick outlines, similar to, like, 2000s cartoon graffiti style, or even some people might think it wouldn't be the same aesthetic, but some people might even think something like Friday Night Funkin' because of its thick outline, stylized, like, punk-ish aesthetic. You know?
I like the idea of the graffiti style.
Yeah, it's like, I just thought, like, Mario Bros, you know? Urban, like, New York, Brooklyn sewer, right? What aesthetic would best complement that besides just being, wow, it's the plumber? A bunch of, like, graffiti punks, you know? So, that's some advanced movement options right there. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, moveset's pretty simple. You have sort of the shoulder barge, which is not useful for fighting enemies, but it's just basically a dash. You have a crouch jump and then a double jump.
Yeah. So, the biggest difference between this, along with Arcade Mario Bros. And the Mario All-Stars thing, is that Arcade Mario Bros. Is co-op competitive, where, like, you're kind of just trying to do better at killing the other enemies than the other player. The Mario All-Stars thing is almost a fighting game. Like, you can win by getting more score than the other players, which pressures them to not let you just get away with killing things. But usually, you probably would agree, the most effective thing to do is to get them to die. And it is much more explicitly a competitive game, because you are directly rewarded with a straightforward victory or loss if you kill them, or getting the points is not just, hey, I have a higher score than you, it's, you win. And the game just stops playing the moment you get the score threshold. Unlike Arcade Mario Bros., which prioritizes going through the levels, right? And this seems structured more like the latter, and not what I'm aiming for. So, I feel comfortable that it definitely has a different niche. I don't know if people would be as immediately reading of that in a marketing sense, because, like, how many people give a shit about Arcade Mario Bros? But I think there's a good idea here.
And also, Anton Fall is, not exactly the most well-known, popular game. More people are probably interested in Anton Blast than they are even really aware of this one.
Maybe, but I'm also thinking that the kind of demographic that would be interested in the game I'm talking about would be the people who know about this game anyway.
Yeah, probably.
I would like to sell this game if I finish it. Probably for a low price. Like, honestly, the number that kept going through my head is $5. I don't know if that's what I would stay with after making it.
Again, this game is $15, so...
Yeah, but I don't know if I'd be comfortable selling something... Like, honestly, if I made this game, I don't know if I would be comfortable selling it for $15. I would be worried that people wouldn't buy it.
Yeah.
And also, given I'm a single developer, I'm not splitting my resources to other people. You know? Like, think about a game like Breath of the Wild, which had over 100 developers working on it, with a major corporation splitting that amongst multiple things, right? Like, that's a $60 game, but you see how many people that's getting split between? Whereas, if I sell a $5 game, and the pocket it goes into after Valve takes their cut is me? I don't need to sell a fraction of the units for a fraction of the price to do well. You know what I mean? And that's fine by me. So, no, I'm okay with selling it for a relatively low price, given the scope of the game would also not be that high. But I'm already talking about monetizing something I've put, like, barely any effort into starting. The next question, I guess, would be what game engine I want to use? Maybe this is the excuse to learn Godot. It's a 2D side-scrolling game, you know? And, like, I could use GameMaker. But if I want to go for a higher resolution art style, I know GameMaker has its limitations with that. You can do it. I could use Unity. But, I don't know. I feel like this Unity might be a little overkill for this. And Godot and GameMaker are both simpler engines to use than Unity. So it probably would be for the best, I think, to stick to that. It's interesting that they have bonus stages here. That might be something to consider. I didn't, like, think of that. I need to think of what kind of a direction I want to go for with this, you know?
Yeah, both modes are separated into sort of chapters, I guess, which each one has a set amount of stages, and at the end of it, you get a bonus stage.
Okay. I'm gonna turn off the screen capture now. Okay. What work did I even put in when I briefly made this? Oh, I started doing a control test. Like a physics thing. I didn't even get that far. I just started putting in some variables, made a set of sprites for testing, and that was it. Yeah, there's no risk of me losing shit if I continued with this. I think I was going to do a pixel art aesthetic with this version of it. I'm not worried about this. How about I open up a Photoshop document and just use it as a visual for me to scribble ideas, you know? Okay. Unfortunate that I still have only 0 viewers, but whatever. I'll survive. I'll find a way to go on. Come on. I think that when it was one person watching, it was counting me looking at the stream. And then the tab unloaded when I went to like post it around, and when the tab unloaded, it stopped counting me. So I think the person who abandoned watching me was me. So sad. Okay, so right. Let's bring up the Photoshop thing now. Hey, so move the controller out of the way and get my good old-fashioned drawing tablet. Where the hell's the glove? There you are. So I want to think of direction because I always really liked that mode ever since I played it like a year ago, right? In Mario All Stars. But there were always so many things I thought could be done to expand on it and do more with it, you know?
Mm.
I'm on the gradient tool. That's why I can't change brush size. I'm smart. I need... Okay, I set my brush to black. Let's not do that. I know what happens when I set my brush to black, and I'm just trying to brainstorm. Anyway. So... I need to figure out what kind of game I want to make. So, option 1, I guess, is to lean into its roots as a side mode for a bigger game, the same way many old retro games did that, where it's got like this very pseudo party feel, but it plays like a different game, the platformer it is, but in like a competitive sense, you know? And just double down on like the side mode thing. That's one option. And what I mean with that, right? Like, if you think about a number of side modes in some of these old games, some of them, the only thing stopping them from being a game in their own right is just that because they're a side mode, they don't receive the attention and content that you would expect from a full game, right? That's actually kind of the impression I get from Anton Ball Deluxe of what it's going for, you know?
Mm.
Because I don't know if you've felt this, but like a lot of those quirky side modes, especially from retro games, of just like the side battle mode to their main game, don't play like dedicated multiplayer games out there because they're just so different. They carry over enough elements from something that's designed to be a single player experience with completely different design into that multiplayer mode. So the multiplayer design ends up being weirdly different from what most multiplayer games are like. So there's kind of like this underexplored, untapped potential of like these party-ish experience multiplayer games that just don't play like anything you've seen. I think the risk with that is that it could end up maintaining that feeling of being disjointed and not feeling like like still feeling just as much like yeah, this is fun as a distraction in the same vein that those do.
Mm.
You would have to be very careful with how you expand it to identify why does it only feel like a distraction and how do you make it feel more fleshed out while not just becoming something else, you know? Option 2, in my mind, is to basically design it like a fighting game. And I don't mean literally a fighting game. But like, you know how I described it as feeling more like like a fighting game in like the game structure than the previous arcade Mario Bros.
Mm.
the thought is to lean even more into that and focus on the competitive elements of the game. Character balance, movesets, stage layouts, and like how you counterplay with each other. Really lean into how your character plays to learn how to use that. But not in a traditional fighting game environment. Have you ever played Lethal League?
Nope.
It's one of my friends adores Lethal League. It was never like my favorite thing, but it's a cool game. They got a sequel too, Lethal League Blaze. I think that game might be liked more, but I've never played it. Regardless, Lethal League is a fighting game, but you don't actually... It has movesets and character abilities, but instead of hitting the opponent, which I don't remember if it does nothing or basically nothing, you have to hit a ball. This ball will bounce around the stage. This ball will be... It turns the color of whoever hit it last. If you get hit by the ball and you weren't the last person to hit it, you do die. It's first to get a number of kills, and then somebody wins. Every time you hit the ball, it speeds up. You have two primary options in Lethal League, the original. Blaze, I believe, shakes up some of the foundations. You have a hit, which you can use to make it go faster, 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 faster. And then you have a bunt. What the bunt does is it does a setup where it stops the ball bouncing around and knocks it up in the air. You need to then follow it up and spike it, where it will dramatically increase in speed, instead of being incremental, but you need to hit the follow-up. Bunting can also be used defensively as a, whoa, hold on, I'm freaking the fuck out with the speed, just stop for a moment, I need to think. But of course, by doing that, you're also giving your opponent a moment to plan around what you're doing, because bunting is telegraphed. It says, I'm setting up, I'm going to do this, which gives the opponent time to think about things. The final thing you get is a super move with your meter building up for successful hits to just, like, slam the ball ridiculously, with, like, each character having their own, like, super effect. Like, I think one, like, goes through walls and shit. It's been a long time since I played Lethal League. I might be forgetting a detail or two, but, like, that's the gist. The reason I bring it up is Lethal League is designed absolutely in every way like a traditional fighting game in terms of picking stages, where the stages are mostly like a traditional fighter, except they're different sizes and shapes, which affects the ball bouncing. They don't have, like, platform layouts or anything. They literally are just different shaped boxes. And because the boxes are different shapes, the balls bounce in different patterns. You know? But it has the same kind of stage picking, and it has the same, like, I want to pick this character for their abilities that I like using. But it's more like ARMS, where the core gameplay is very similar character to character. I don't know if Blaze changes this, but, like, you get core abilities that affect the way you approach it. I actually think the game does that better than ARMS, because I think because ARMS is so focused around the arms being unique, and that's a universal mechanic, that I think it kind of dilutes it, and Lethal League is very focused. But that's a different discussion. Point being, Lethal League is designed like a fighting game, but it has this completely non-fighting game-like core gameplay loop, you know? And given the Mario 3 thing, or All-Stars thing, already was leaning into that, the idea would be to go all in, you know? And I think there's a lot of merit to that, and I think it would make people come back more. The only question is if that would start getting in the way of the party elements, or if you could fit the party elements in a little bit more like Smash, or if that would get in the way, or do I lean into something like the item system and make that part of the competitive experience? Kirby the Fighters could actually be a good example, because that basically is just taking Kirby, making it a fighting game, and then telling you to run with it. And it's weirdly compelling, you know?
Mm.
Kirby the Fighters has items. I should look at the standalone games and see how they handle the item system and how seriously people take that game. You know? The community that actually plays it, obviously. Not outsiders. I think there's a lot of potential for that direction too. I think it's safer, and it's not less faithful for the reason that the version I'm basing it on is already more like a fighting game than the game it follows up. And to be fair, there's also a compelling argument that this would be more unique from Anton Ball Deluxe, because Anton Ball Deluxe is going more for option one, you know?
Mm.
And I think that too just complements my idea of having different characters with unique abilities more on paper. But there's something to be said about doubling down on the party experience. But the thing is, I could totally do this and take a page from Smash Bros. And then just lean into optional party elements, you know?
Mm.
That depends on how the game is structured, and that is a farther down the chain discussion than what I'm doing here. There's a lot of steps I have to go to before I get to the point where I'm, you know, able to figure out what that would look like or if it's a good idea. This is also doesn't have to be a decision that's permanent. I can shift to directions, but I think I would like to have a direction before I start doing anything. Is it possible there's like a third, fourth thing? I'm not. Well, okay. Probable, honestly. But that I'm not thinking of. For something like this, I don't really want to make it have like a single player campaign or story focus. I really think I want this to be like a multiplayer experience that has probably like a score attack single player mode, you know? Just so there's a single player offering and hopefully make it enticing. Something people would like to play on its own and maybe also treat as practice for the competitive aspect. I would also, from this fighting game thing, if that's the direction I go, need to decide if I want to go more competitive or casual, you know, in terms of focus and prioritization. These aren't mutually exclusive, but it's important to know what your priorities are, right? Like, Smash makes sure its competitive elements are well structured, well thought out, and that's the focus of its game balance. But most features in Smash are put in for the casual experience, you know?
Mm.
When you look at something like a Street Fighter game, it's not that there isn't anything for casuals. There definitely are features put there for people to just have fun, because if it was solely competitively focused, it would be really hard to convince people to buy the game.
It's like, I'm just gonna play with a bunch of sweaty people who know how to play the game better than me. No thanks. But the design of the game definitely is more tailored around a competitive audience. You know what I mean?
Mm.
These aren't mutually exclusive. You can have a casual-oriented game that has a very strong competitive foundation. I applaud the shit out of Smash for that. But I would need to figure out what I'm prioritizing. There's nothing wrong with either direction, but do I care more about making a deep experience, a deep balanced experience, where every tool is placed there with the thought of people engaging with it on its complexities? Or do I want an experience where people play it, have a good time, and for the people who stick around, they might actually find something deeper to latch onto, maybe? I don't know. It's worth noting, wide appeal on paper gets you more sales, but I am making something that's admittedly niche. And there is something in the petty designer in me that would have such a fun time taking something that people would look at and say, that's just a casual, bizarre game, and making it a really deep competitive experience as a way of saying that what we consider the traditional competitive experience is arbitrary and it's a little needlessly codified. You know what I mean? A game that plays like Arcade Mario Bros. Can easily be made, well, easily in quotes, but you know what I mean, be made into a deep competitive experience with as much validity as any like fighting game, MOBA, or shooter out there. You know? So, I'm not the first person to do something like that, but this is definitely a little more off the wall than most examples. I mean, Lethal League would be a big one, but Lethal League still tries to stay very much in its fighting game inspirations. Even more of a fighting game in that it's literally a fighting game where you're beating people up. But I'm still very amused by it as Dive Kick. A character-based fighting game with unique character traits, but you only have 2 actions for every character, and that's diving, which is, you know, an aerial option that you use to move in some fashion, and kicking. Where, when you're in the air, usually, you kick opponents. And that is the entirety of Dive Kick. And they made an entire fighting game with character matchups and depth of strategy around that. And that's fucking amazing. Dive Kick's really cool. Once again, not as much the kind of game I would play that crazily, because it's not, like, super tailored to me. It's the kind of thing that I might sit down and play with friends every once in a while, because it's fun. But I applaud that they sat down and said, yeah, we're going to make something with a lot of depth and complexity to it that's like this. And I do think it's worth noting that you can make something that's a very competitive oriented in terms of its feature set and what it is, but if it's quirky, it still appeals to the casuals by the simple fact of, like, I'm playing something really distinct and different and, like, fun with friends that I can only get here, you know? Because as much as, honestly, if you look at Dive Kick, it really isn't, like, that casual of a game in terms of its design. It's very focused on the competitive aspects of the characters, how they're balanced with each other, and how they interact, so that the best player will win, you know? But it's such an off-the-wall, silly game and concept that it's just fun to boot up with friends, even if you're just going to play it for, like, a few minutes. You know? I could say something similar about Lethal League. So, that's part of what I mean about these aren't mutually exclusive appeals. But there definitely is something to be said for having focus. It just changes what my goal should be. I have something I am not going to intentionally break out of. In fact, I am going to intentionally try to stay away from breaking this rule. Is no scope creep. If the whole point of this project is to make it a small project, yes, redundancies. Hello. But, something small to work on that I can reasonably get done. We cannot have scope creep constantly just going, okay, but what if I added this? And what if I added this? And what if I added this? And what if I added this? I need to, stop myself from continually pushing that bar to the point that it's stops being a relatively simply achievable game, So, how Arcade Mario Bros. Not Arcade Mario, the battle mode, rather, has an item system?
Yeah.
So that item system acts as a way to shake up the match on a moment's notice. And I think there is a good amount of value to it. In that, the thing is, there's only one item. It does two things, but there's only one item, right? It's the swap mushroom, Well, okay, there is a second item. There's just a regular mushroom, I believe, which you can use to, get bigger. But, that's a recovery item. And I would need to decide how does that fit into a competitive experience? Because if you ask me, it's kind of the X factor that keeps it from being simple, think of what the goal is of Arcade Mario Bros. Versus the goal of a traditional fighting game, right? In a fighting game, you are in a stage. There is you, and there is your opponent, right? And from your perspective, your target is a singular position, and it is that enemy opponent, right? How you approach that can have a ton of different complexities to it. But that is your goal, right? In Arcade Mario Bros., or specifically in that battle mode of Mario All-Stars, you have the other player, but when you ask the question of what's your objective, one answer could be the other player, right? For your objective, one answer could be the other player, but another answer could be the score. Could be your objective as well. And in order to achieve that score, you need to go potentially anywhere on the whole board. And in terms of killing the other player, you don't do it by going into them. You do it by going into them or around them in response to something else on the stage. You know what I'm saying? The whole balancing act here isn't about a constant clash of two players being approximately near each other. Strategically going away from them or towards them could be your goal. And I don't mean in a sense of retreating or advancing. I mean because retreating is a defensive play. I'm saying that leaving your opponent can be an aggressive play in Mario Bros, right? Because you could be going to get points over there by hitting a Koopa, right? Or a Shell Creep, or a Spiny, whatever. Who cares? Anyway, But point being, by doing that, it's a lot more involved. This is actually Smash Bros. Starts to become a little bit like this with items on, but not really, because your goal is still just to hit the opponent, right? You're going over there to get an advantage to then use it to go hit your opponent, right? In Mario Bros, it's not even necessarily about going to get an advantage. It could be, like, if you're going to get a Koopa to kick it into your opponent. But it also could just be going to kill enemies to get a score to win the round, right? So, if you ask me, that's the biggest reason items are banned in Smash, besides them being random, is that they take the focus away from the competitive center of why people play Smash. You can make an argument that an item-centric Smash experience could be a valid experience. In fact, that's what Brawlhalla is. You know? Brawlhalla's goal is to take Smash with items and make it a competitive experience, if you wanted to oversimplify it, you know? So I'm not saying that can't be competitive, but as Smash is designed, that tends to distract from the majority of mechanics being entirely centered around your direct interactions with the other player, and adding items that you need to stop, go grab, and use takes those interactions and forces you apart. Which, it stops you from engaging with the most complex and deep elements of the game to go basically do a minigame. Of, like, I'm gonna go grab this. I don't want you to grab that! You know? And that's not bad design, but from a competitive standpoint, most people found that that wasn't as appealing. You know?
Mm.
However, take that philosophy and apply it to something like Mario Bros. Would going for items take away from the competitive appeal in something like Mario Bros., right? If you ask me, I think it actually might be more comparable to something like a MOBA in this regard, right? Because I don't know how much you would play a MOBA, but you, in a MOBA, usually have an arena layout. The traditional one is the 3 lanes, right? With in between the 3 lanes being jungle. There are so many variations, differences, and this isn't the only way to do it, but this is the common one, right? One team starts in one corner, the other team starts in the other corner. And maybe I should be share screening, honestly, so that you're not seeing what I'm talking about with the visuals in a delay. And then there are towers. Usually you have like 2 or 3 towers per lane or some shit like that. I forget what the standard would be. And there's like one team owns one side, the other team owns the other side. When a tower goes down, it's down. Okay. The only MOBA I've personally played is Dota. I am aware of many other MOBAs and how they work, but I don't even play Dota anymore. I tried it, discovered it wasn't for me, and stopped. I just want to get that out of the way. Most of my experience comes from Dota in terms of actual play experience. This is less for you, Red, and more for the audience who might look at me and go and say, this isn't accurate, you're oversimplifying, or that only applies to some of them. I know. Let me have this for a moment. If I start muddying it with different types of examples and how some games are different, it will make it impossible to discuss this. So, in many MOBAs like Dota, you lose a tower, it's gone. But that means that basically these towers are objectives. You need to get through each progressive tower to get through a lane to eventually get to the enemy base and destroy it. Right? But because of this, your goals are here, or well, if you are this team, your goals are here, 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 and here. And also your goals are anywhere over here to stop them from killing you. And MOBAs have experience points with level ups that you get from killing things, not just players, but enemies, because you have generic soldiers in most MOBAs that go and fight each other, right? And going and killing the enemy soldiers can get you experience points. But not just that, many MOBAs have neutral soldiers who are just like random monsters living in what's called the jungle, where they give you experience points. And many of them have shops in multiple locations, which you also get gold from killing things. So going in the jungle could be a goal to get those items to then go and be better at killing enemies, or getting level ups to increase your stats, or unlocking your abilities you can use to hit them. So you could start picking on tiny spots on the map and say, that's a goal, that's a goal, that's a goal. But you know what the truth of it is? The whole fucking map's the goal. Because, not in that it is the goal at a singular moment, but any spot on the map could be your goal. You know what I mean? Dota, specifically, has an item system similar to that of a party game, with runes. In the middle of the map in Dota is a river that divides the enemy side from from your side, right? And in the river are a few spots that spawn power-ups that increase one of your stats temporarily, called runes. Controlling those and being there to use them is powerful. But notice that they're in the border between your bases. Nobody has access to those near the enemy's base, so that you can't easily use those to just stomp the enemy in their base. Not like literally can't, but it's not nearly as simple as using it on this front line, right? But it has basically an item system. Now, they're not random. They drop on schedules. But that means that controlling these locations where game-changing power-ups show up that take away the traditional balanced player interaction, where every element is based off of, like, decisions you've made, and it's already got an element of that, a diet element of it with the experience points, because, like, how many things you do randomly over here and fuck off, and how many things they do, which is no player engagement involved, those are things you're doing on your own, can affect who has better stats. Which is also why killing people who are trying to do that is another strategy. This has not stopped MOBAs from being competitive experiences and making people go, it's casual, you know? You're just like, you're not focused on like a singular task. There's like this over there, that over there, and this thing, and that thing pops up. That's why people play MOBAs. You know what I mean? That is, learning how to juggle that is the competitive draw of MOBAs, right? And that's why, in my head right now, I'm thinking that the item system of something like Mario Bros. Doesn't have to be anti-competitive. Especially since Mario Bros. Already has, on that aspect, something significantly in common with MOBAs more than fighting games. Now, that's not to say it's more like a MOBA than a fighting game across the board. That's not what I'm saying. MOBAs are like team versus team with like swarms of AI enemies, and like this has AI enemies, only neutral ones, not team-based ones. There's no team gameplay, and it's explicitly player versus player in the same sense that a fighting game is, with that much more limited scope of a one-screen environment. There's stealth in MOBAs, because you're in a massive map with places you can hide and fog of war. Mario Bros is on one screen, like a fighting game, you know? So I'm not saying that I should look to MOBAs and not to fighting games or something, because it's more comparable to a MOBA. I mean, in terms of this aspect of the competitive balancing. You know what I mean? And all of this is as a discussion of if I want to lean into the competitive element of it. That was a lot of raving. I hope it was interesting to not the people watching, because nobody's fucking watching, but people who might watch it later. It might be worth clipping this. Honestly. And just, like, uploading it as, like... could it even be a short? I don't know. I'll see. But, like... This is what I'm talking about. I don't know. Do you have any opinions? Or are you just sitting here nodding your head going, wow, this is really interesting. I've never thought of that before, huh? Or you think I'm an idiot. You know, you could just think that.
Hmm.
Cat wants slide in my room. We're out. You want out. Okay. Don't shit on my rug. Go shit in the litter box. Thank you. Or have food. I don't know what you want. Not my cats. Shocker, I know. I'm using other people's cats for social media clout. That cat's my sister's. Where people think I'm a cat kidnapper. Catnapper.
Hmm.
I think I'm gonna actually post this stream to my friends. I wasn't gonna do it before simply because I don't want to like spam our chat every time I go live. I posted the first one on the Twitter post because like, yeah, just by the way, I'm streaming now. But I'm making the brothers. And that would mean something to them. So I think I'm gonna at some of them. added my friends. I don't remember all of the people who would be interested, so I added the ones I did remember, but still. I think they'd be at least curious. Um... tabbing between all of the wrong things. I should be going back to Streamlabs, not Discord. Hi! Welcome back to the stream, my 0 viewers. Interesting. Uh, the cat's already back. Unfortunately for him, I was actually literally about to say, I think I'm gonna get up for a moment, like grab a snack and a drink. Cause I didn't have a proper lunch today. And I should have the calories in my body, and I think I spent a good amount sitting here raving about game design. I just had my desktop on screen for a prolonged amount of time because of my dumb ass. Nice. Not really anything horrible there, I think. But, you know. I'm smart. I don't want to have my computer on screen too much. Proceeds to show desktop for like 15 to 20 seconds. By accident. So I'm gonna actually turn off the screen capture just in case something pops up on my screen or it goes into like a rest mode or something, and I don't know. Worst thing that could happen is I accidentally dox myself. But I don't want to do something like that by accident, so I'm going to have that disabled, get up, and go figure out what I'm gonna do about food, drink. Cat decided to go on my lap. He's gonna be disappointed because I'm getting up. Say hello to the chat, Charlie. The one viewer in chat. Oh my god, there's a viewer. Say hello. He doesn't want to look at the camera. He's like, why the fuck are you doing this to me? Yeah. You don't like that. That's okay. Here you go. Bye. But yeah, I'm stalling. Hey, Eric. I'm literally grabbing a drink, and I'll be right back.
You.
I am back.
Are you now?
Had to stop by also help my grandfather. Gonna go do that. Okay. Well, did you have any thoughts while I was gone?
Nope.
Cool. I was distracted, so I wasn't thinking much about it. Oh, fun. There's a hole in that shirt. Ah, wonderful. It's not in the worst spot, but that's fun. I have a feeling it might have been a cat. Anyway, so ugh, casual, competitive, whoa. I think it would be easier to make this a casual game. But I have a bit of a fear that if I leaned into the casual direction, it would kind of just fall into this sea of games. Like casual games out there. And not really stand out as being something different. Where it's like it kind of just plays like the arcade thing, but with a ton more features that just make it wacky. You know? When you could play a ton of games out there that do not literally the same thing, but something tangibly similar. Whereas I feel like the competitive thing might make more of a statement. And make people go, what the hell is this? This is crazy. And I think as a competitive game, it would still have casual appeal because of how wacky it is. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
I might just be talking myself into a direction. But you know what? I don't need to worry that much about this. Like, it's a goddamn marital commitment. Again, as I said, this is something I can change. I just need to have a direction so I know what I'm doing at all. You know? So, it probably would be best if I stopped going, but will I regret this? And just say, everything I've been talking about leans into option number 2 as more of a competitive game. So maybe that's what I should just do working forward. And if I don't think it was a good idea, just reevaluate it another time. You know what I mean? You know what I mean when I say you know what I mean? You know what I mean? You know what? You know, Red? Do you? Do you?
No.
Do you know? Oh. Damn it. I just was checking. I didn't know if you were stupid and brain dead. So, let's clear that. Also, change the brush. I was using a charcoal brush, but I don't want to use a charcoal brush. I was using that for something else, and I forgot to change it. So, I think the next thing, part of me wants to just go, say, jump into characters, but I think I should figure some things out first about the core of the game and how it will work. You know? You know? Fuck. I'm getting self-conscious about how much I'm saying, you know. Okay. I already do that a lot, Red, because, for personal reasons, struggle with like telling people are following along with me without them being clear about it. But on top of that, you're already a quiet person by nature. You listen a lot more than you speak. So on top of me already doing that a lot, I am doing it even more with less responses. Because it's just like, am I just speaking to myself? Hello? What's going on? I also don't have the viewers to bounce off of either. I'm going insane, Red. You know?
No.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. It's kind of relieving that you don't know what it's like to go insane. So, I think the next step is to break down the elements of the gameplay that are in the All-Stars Mario Bros, right? And decide what I want to keep, what I want to get rid of, what I want to change, what I want to add from that as a base point, right? Because that is the core inspiration. The goal is to take that and flesh it out into something bigger, right? So, the logical first step is, hey, so what does it do? What do I want to do? So, I think one of the things... It's a very simple game. It has one stage. I think I'm gonna zoom in for this so that I can draw bigger without taking up the whole space. It has 2 items. It has... Oh, I have no smoothing on. That's why it looks like shit. I have shaky hands. So, I can't draw a straight line to save my life. Like, if I, for the viewers who aren't watching, if I, do this... That's one of my best straight lines right there. But if I try to do it slow and precise... Holy shit. And the thing is, like, yeah, cool, swiping motions... But I kind of need to be a little more precise if I'm doing something like this. So if I just gotta turn up that smoothing. To like, somewhere around here-ish. And wow, it's not terrible anymore. This is the future the liberals want. People who don't have any actual artistic talent to have computers fix their debilitating problems for them. Survival of the fittest, idiot. How dare you have hand tremors? So the game has 2 items. It has the mushroom. In fact, actually, I should save myself some effort. Because they're both mushrooms. We have the mushroom. And we have the swap mushroom. Right? And that's it. Except not really, kind of. There is something that basically functions like a third item. And that's Koopas. Because they don't count for score. They're technically enemies, but they don't count to your enemy's score, right? And you use them similar to how you use items. Not as a literal power-up for yourself, but as a tool, right? Like, that's the philosophy behind Koopas. So really... And it's not the Koopa, it's their shell. So I could say, yeah... And, like, those are basically the items. So even if one of these is technically not an item in the literal sense, you know. I'm trying to draw a box that's not awful, and I'm getting self-conscious about it. There. It's okay. I need to draw this bigger. There we go. So here's what I'm thinking. One of these is basically a health restore, right? One of these swaps the players either their status or their position. And one of these is a weapon. These all serve different purposes, right? Here's the first thing I want to think about. These have pretty logical, obvious utilities in what I'm trying to do. This is a very Mario item. You know what I mean? This relies on me even deciding to use the getting big and shrinking thing. And I might. That's a maybe. But I don't know if I want to do shrinking. So, the reason is, on paper, I don't want to just, like, take getting big and getting small from Mario and just do that. It would feel tonally out of place. Oh my god, this cat's gonna be so upset. His mortal enemy is here, the drawing tablet. He can't be on my lap because the drawing tablet is here. He's so upset. He feels defeated. His life dream of being a lap cat was just squashed. You can't go on my desk. I do this every time, cat. You are not allowed on my desk. And he's gonna just try to squeeze in here and sit on my lap anyway. Because he just really wants that attention. Is he gonna realize this is not a good plan, or is he just gonna... It's not personal. Yeah, you're still gonna try to make this work. There's nothing to sit on there if you try to sit. Your ass is just gonna go in the air. I hope you've realized that. He's purring. Oh my goodness. You're a fucking goofball. Well, time to get thoroughly distracted by Kitty Cat. As I was saying, I don't want to just take shrinking and growing. That's just such a decidedly Mario thing that doesn't really fit thematically with what I'm doing, and it would hinder the game's ability to have its own identity, right? Right? Am I right?
Maybe.
Very decisive of you, Red. I'm one to talk. Anyway. But here's the thing. The growing and shrinking mechanic is one of the most interesting things about that version of Mario Bros. Because, you know, in most versions, right, you just die as soon as you get hit. I just lost the cat. I was actually moving this to try to pick him up to take him off, but then as soon as I moved, he's like, the lap's free. I'm gonna go there. Maybe I could let him stay here until I need to use the tablet again, or maybe get used to using it up here. I'm sitting lower. I don't know. It does... Is this one that has the feet to sit at an angle? No. No, it doesn't. This is not a very advanced tablet. Anyway. So the reason, right? It's interesting. It's not just because you get an extra hit. Honestly, I don't care that much about being able to survive a hit. What's interesting about it is it creates an active game state where you have size differences. Do you remember, Red, how much damn knockback you take in that when you bump into another player? Do you?
It's been a while.
The answer is it's significant. When Mario and Luigi bump into each other, they push each other around a lot. But here's the thing. When Mario and Luigi are the same size, they push each other back a smallish distance, right? But if one of them is big and the other is small, the big person doesn't really flinch that much. They just kind of like stop for a moment. The small one gets launched, sliding in the distance. And the reason that matters is because when you're small, you don't have what's it called? I am blanking and it's not helping me. When you are small, because you get pushed around more, it is significantly easier to use that to bully small players by pushing them into enemies. Right? And you also die in one hit when you're small. So getting hit doesn't just make it so that you are one hit closer to death. It makes it so that the other player can much more aggressively try to make you die. It is a weakness state. It is communicating, I'm not doing okay, and I'm in trouble. Now, it does come with the classic Mario upside of being small, of, like, you have a smaller hitbox and you can squeeze through things. I don't care enough to preserve that element, even if there's a potential for depth there. It's cool, but I'd rather not make that an active part of the game mechanics. In fact, I'd almost rather make that a character difference where some characters are bigger or smaller than others, you know? So that raises questions of, so what do you want to do with that, right? So I'm thinking, I don't know if I want to use it as a health system or if I want to change it. But I think one of the character stats, or one of the stats in general, would be traction. You know, how much you slip and slide. And I'm thinking, I had this idea a while ago when I was toying around with the thought of this concept. I wasn't sure exactly how I wanted to implement it, but it was an idea. What if, instead of that, and also tying a bit into the, like, urban theming, you know, you get shoes. You know, like styling like kicks, you know, haha. And the thing about these shoes is that by wearing shoes, you have more traction. Or maybe it could even be a thing where you could wear different types of shoes with different types of effects, but if you aren't wearing shoes, you're just running around in your socks. And you know what? And if you know anything about running around in socks, they be slippery. So you would get pushed around a lot more with socks. But I'm thinking that you could almost build a momentum system into this. Because you know what's the thing about low traction? You can use it to, like, you can use it to make it so that you're harder to stop, if you know what I mean. Because, like, if you have momentum going in, and you have low traction, they can't just stop you from pushing yourself up. Like think about it, right? If you run at somebody and you hit them, you are probably going to have your legs stop pushing you forward. So the only forward movement you have is whatever movement you were carrying in, right? But that means it comes down to traction after that point if you keep sliding, right? And also your weight. But so if like imagine like a really heavy guy crashes into a small person wearing socks at a full sprint. They stop sprinting the moment they hit them because it's hard to just, keep sprinting when you do that. And if they're wearing socks, they probably just keep sliding on a lot of surfaces, Whereas if they're wearing shoes, they might stop. And the thing is, if they're wearing socks and they keep sliding, what's on the other side of them sliding? The other person. There is a potential to use your momentum to knock people further for heavier characters. However, low traction would leave you more vulnerable to being pushed around in the first place. So I'm thinking that a good idea for power-ups, at least one major type of power-ups, is shoes, where you can only wear one pair of shoes or no shoes. And that will affect your character's control and their vulnerability. I considered treating it like the mushroom, where when you're wearing shoes, that's your hit points, and when you get hit, you lose your shoes, and if you're not wearing shoes, you die when you get hit. I'm not sure if I want to go that direction or not. I'm also thinking that shoes could be specially designed. Like, just like Arcade Mario Bros., I don't want you to be able to jump on the enemies. If you jump on the enemies, you should get hurt. But what if there were shoes that you could jump on people with? Or not people. You can jump on other people, but that's actually a generally bad thing in that game, and I don't want to get into that right this second. But like, what if you had shoes that let you jump on some things circumstantially, right? Like, maybe damage certain types of enemies by jumping on them when normally you couldn't because maybe they're spiky cleats or something, right? But maybe spiky cleats increase your traction, like, a lot. A lot. To the point where it's actually kind of hard to push people sometimes. Like, you can still push people, obviously, but, like, the other thing about traction, right, is it makes you stop quickly. It also makes you start quickly. But cleats really only help you move in grass. And I don't need to worry too much about realism, but because of that, wearing cleats in, like, a sewer, I could make some bullshit that they increase your traction, even though that's a little weird. But I could say that it makes it harder to walk, so the character is, like, slower with the cleats on. Even though you wear cleats to help you move faster. But again, you're not running in grass in this game. Or at least you probably aren't. I don't know. This is spitballing. I don't know if that's something I will do. Maybe there even could be shoes where maybe it's like literally like maybe roller skates where it makes your traction go even fucking lower, and your speed goes up. Do you know the physics equation for momentum?
Maybe.
It's mass times velocity equals momentum. So if the mass, which would be character weight, right? And each character has a different weight. And velocity is tied to stats of your character, like their speed and their traction. That would be used to figure out what your character's current momentum is, right? And when a character hits another character and they hit each other, you do the simple physics interaction of how does this cancel out their momentum? There are already simple equations for doing that, right? And all I need to do is attach these character stats to it, which power-ups would affect. You know? Now, I don't need to go one-to-one realism in how these are handled. I can tune the numbers to be a good gameplay fit, but that's the thing. By having these stats, you can effectively have an entire meta about your momentum in terms of your interaction with other players, right? This isn't the only game that does something like this. I'm ultimately going into a weirdly specific description of how a number of games handle interactions like this. Like fucking... What's a good example? Honestly, I bet you there's a Beyblades video game that works like this. You know? Like, this isn't that uncommon. There's plenty of games that just have this as a feature. Fucking Mario Kart does this. Especially Double Dash. Holy shit. Honestly, there's a lot of racing games that use stuff like this. And I imagine there's a good amount of combat racers where that's part of the meta. What makes it unique isn't the idea of having a momentum crashing into people as part of the meta. What's unique about it is the type of game this is, and having a centralized meta around a concept like this, right? So, that's the thought. So I'm thinking that the mushroom could be replaced by, like, you know, shoes of some kind. I think there's potential for some hazard-like weapons that you could use to interact with the terrain. I'm not sure exactly what, but I think there would be multiple types of things that would be like the Koopa Shell. And then there's the swap. I really like the swap, but I think there's one thing I would change. I would remove the swap state function. Especially if it's going to be more complicated than just are you big or are you small. I would make it so that the swap just swaps your position, no matter what, right? But contextualizing that, I mean, like, I have to think about how zany I want this world to be. And thus, how off the wall do I want implementations of these concepts to be? How unrealistic, you know? As it stands, instant teleportation, swapping two people's positions in space, isn't real. We have no way of doing that with modern technology. Right? And certainly not magic. So, for an urban punk-themed game, something that would work well for that? Also, despite the fact that it's urban and punk themed, I don't want to lean into sexual, drug, or excessively violent themes. I want sexual themes to be no further than just typical urban fashion trends, which might have something like, ooh, this is a shirt that's not really strapless and or is strapless and goes to the below the shoulders or something, or something that's just a style that is slightly revealing as part of its part of the fashion sense. But that's I don't want an obsession with tits or something, spray painting lewd shit on the walls, violence, obviously there's violence in the sense that you're going to be pushing people around to get them to bump into things, but that's a very Tony Hawk Pro Skater kind of violence, and not I'm gonna pull a knife or a gun on you. And I don't want drugs. I know drugs have a significant part as well in a lot of urban culture, but we're not trying to do that. This is very much urban themed in the fun, lighthearted way, not the not the grimy, morally questionable way. It's an aesthetic. So I partly bring that up because in a discussion of power-ups, that definitely affects what I would or would not do. I might not need to think of this right now, what the hell the swap would be, but I think I feel pretty confident that I would want it in the game. So different levels would have different aesthetics, but something I was thinking before is, how it's in Mario Bros. It's just made of blocks. I was thinking that the default level would be very similar to the layout of the original Mario Bros. With a similar platform layout, like the classic, right? That one of the stages would be like that. Probably the first one. However, instead of just being blocks to hit enemies, I was thinking that given you're already in an urban underground, it would be pipes, and you would jump and hit these. To hit enemies that are up here. And it would bend the pipe when you do that. Now, you might be thinking of in the Mario 3 All-Stars battle mode, when you hit a block, an item can come out of it. If it happens to be the one with an item in it, right? How would you handle that? I'm thinking, first of all, that it would be telegraphed. Unlike the Mario 3 thing, to lean more into the competitive direction where it's something the players are actively aware exists in the field. How obvious it should be, I would need to think about, but I'm thinking that there would be a bulge in the pipe. Where it's just something's clearly jammed in the pipe. Oh my god. And if you hit it, whatever it is gets forced out at the end. And that's how you would free items stuck in pipes, right? Now, I would need to think about how this would work on other stages if I want to have different aesthetics. But that was my thought. And there is a significant change to this, because instead of going up the top, that means it goes out the side like that, you know? Now, there is another thing to consider, and that's POW blocks. They serve a notable purpose in the level design of being a hotspot that you can use to instantly affect the whole arena and mess with the other player without being next to them. Now, they're a little over-centralized in that by staying near this, you control a lot. But they have a very powerful and appropriate purpose, and I wouldn't want them to be gone. In terms of what they should be, they shouldn't literally be a POW block. It could be something like a dynamite pack. It could even, instead of floating, be something like this. You know, with like the classic like big switch thing. And it could be something where if you jump on it, it sets off an explosion. But it doesn't set off an explosion on the battlefield. It sets off an explosion like below you, off wherever, right? But the explosion causes a quake that shakes everything the same way a POW block would, you know? So I think that would be a good replacement. I think that, first off, would change it so that it's one use. And I think that would be probably for the best, because POW blocks are really easily able to be camped in that game, because you can use them 3 times, I believe. Unless it doesn't work that way, because the arcade game does, and I think that one does as well, but I don't remember. But because you can use it 3 times, that means you can kind of just camp it for a while, and the other player basically just can't do anything. This means that if you want to use it, you have to get it right. But another potential thing that could come out of this is if it's something that you activate by landing on, you could have an enemy waltz off the edge and land on it and trigger it without either playing it or touching it. I don't know if I want to design it around that in a situation for that to happen, but that could cause some interesting situations where you have to be aware of your surroundings a lot, which is already part of the meta of this. It's not instigated by the player, and the question would be, is that something that would be considered obnoxious? I'm gonna put back down the POW block thing, though. It's very similar to the item thing, and I feel pretty confident about that. Now, another question that comes up is core abilities and then additionally character attributes and abilities, right? Well, let's zoom out there for a moment and center. So people should be able to, you know, run, jump, I believe I wanted them to be able to slide. Not just crouch, but like properly slide. Basically just, you know, crouch while running and you'll slide. And then the question would be, should there be any other actions that are universal? There's only one thing I can think of that would be a maybe, and that's picking things up, but that would dramatically change the way the game plays. I should actually think about this. All of these actions do not require anything more than one button in the D-pad, right? Unless I want a run button specifically. Which, maybe. Speed control does matter for this. Because speed control affects, you know, the momentum thing. So, character attributes should be definitely weight. Speed. Fuck, why am I blanking? I think I shouldn't have characters with unique traction and keep that to the shoe gimmick. It might not be a literal stat, but I think I should include size in there. These would be most likely partially tied. But you could also say that so would these. So that's a different can of worms. So there's a stat I'm not sure if I want to have. Jump height. I don't know if characters should have different jump heights than each other. At least for like a base normal jump, right? I feel like jump height is an integral part of map design and determining like you jump to hit the platform to go wah, you know, and if somebody jumps lower or higher, then I have to design the stages to accommodate the absolute minimum. And maybe just making everyone have the same jump height across the board and maybe giving characters certain movement abilities that might add to that would be different and more reasonable, I guess you could say. Um, weight, speed, size. Would I want to do acceleration? I think acceleration would be tied to traction and not worth making it more complex. I do think shoes can also affect speed, though. That's fine. Speed is a little more obvious and less esoteric than paying attention to the exact traction or especially weight, which is not a visible thing, other than just how heavy does the character look. Although, I do think it could be reasonable to have a weight altering shoes like iron boots. Not size, though. Would it be worthwhile for characters to have different gravities? Is there an upside to being floatier or falling faster? Notable enough to want to make that part of the balance and not just something that could tangibly break the game or be uninteresting? Some character abilities would be passive and some might be active, I'm thinking. It might use an extra button for the active ones. Thinking if there's anything else I should be adding to the core kit or not. Let's talk about shoes over here. Low traction. Yeah. Is there anything else? More doesn't look like a word anymore. I hate this feeling. Actually, I think it would make sense for cleats to treat you as having less weight. Not because your weight would be lower, but because you're balancing on smaller spikes and it would be easier to knock you around. But you have less traction. Or you have more traction so you don't slide as much. Here's actually... I do think shoes should be able to increase jump height. You know what? I think it'd be funny if high tops made you have a slightly taller hitbox. Which is more of a negative than it is a positive because it makes it so you can fit through spaces not as easily. So I'm thinking, what if there were heals and they were just bad? But there was a power up you could get that swaps your shoes with with an opponent. And if you so the idea would be to get the heals and use that power up to get them stuck with the heals. Also, nothing like a game called Da Brothers where almost every single character is male and you put in like stilettos. I like this idea. I'm gonna save this document. Um, might be a good idea for me to not have my file browsing on screen. Let's turn back on the screen capture now that I've done all that. Cool. So, got about a half hour left. Maybe we can try to get some of the brothers start on character design now. Got a bit more of a foundation of how these things should work. So we got like, pretty typical punk here. And we can call him Bro.
Gonna be like a bro force, where every character has bro in their name.
I think that would be generally a fun thing to do.
Though that was with a lot of movie parodies and such.
Try to have their feet on a similar level for these guys, so I can more easily highlight their height differences. This guy is going to be Broseph. I'm thinking Bro might be the trans one, actually.
Hmm?
I'm thinking Bro might be the trans one.
Oh, the default one.
Not just because it's the default one, but I'm just looking at the character design, thinking about what I'm envisioning in my head about the character, and I'm thinking it actually might work pretty well. Slightly shorter than average for them. Has a build that looks masculine but is somewhat androgynous. Wears a thick, like baggy pants and a thick sweatshirt, which makes it easy to hide features. I think it actually is like a pretty good choice of those.
I think having that is sort of like the default unofficial main character, I guess, assuming you don't want one to specifically
Yeah,
be
no,
a
I'm not
thing.
having an explicit main character, but Bro is definitely going to be like the first character in the slot. That's part of
Yeah,
why I named him Bro.
having that be the trans one, I think, be pretty cool. Also, somewhat avoids the trans one just being the trans one.
Mm, I want to be clear, that's not a missing tooth. That is a gold tooth I'm trying to allude to. Okay, he's gonna have like this beat up, kind of rough, cool kid, but big guy kind of thing going on. However, I'm thinking he's gonna do like a kingpin and wear like a white suit. As a nice contrast between those. Those look like shorts. He's wearing like pants, like a proper like business pants. Actually, right. That's how suits work. Me, big brain. Okay. As it stands, fucking God, stop trying to correct me. I'm pushing the right key, you're just confused. Portions around there. I'm thinking he would be Brohemoth. Figure out what you're doing, cat. Let's round it out at least 4 characters. Might want to do a little more than 4, but let's do at least 4 because I want to have at least 4 player.
So then the girl bro.
I think, unlike the she's one of the bros tropes, I think I want her to be notably feminine and not just like a tomboy, you know?
Yeah.
But like viciously dangerous.
So Daisy.
Trying to think of what her hairstyle would be. I think it would be that the hair covers one side of the head more thoroughly than the other. And this would be that side of the head. Lining up with the Big Bang. Not enough back of the skull existing there. There we go. I think she'd be wearing a crop top. sitting here carrying her pocketbook, I want to lean into the feminine and make it painfully obvious that she's traditionally feminine, to then have that as a contrast to the fact that she's still treated as just one of the boys. And as a bit of a contrast of the cultural expectations with how violent this game is, of her not being a part of that. I understand with it being punk themed, it kind of still isn't as subversive as it would otherwise be, but I think it's more interesting than just saying she's the tomboy, you know?
Mm.
I understand it's like, oh, so the only female character in the game is overly feminine. And I understand that that kind of runs that risk. But it's I think in this case, it's uniquely subversive. And I'm also taking care to not just make her the delicate female of the cast, you know?
Also, another option to avoid that is just, if you expand the cast, add more female characters, so it's not just the one.
Yeah, I don't want it to have much in the way of female characters just because of the trope of the brothers being like the whole fucking spiel, but it also it runs the risk of taking away from the gimmick of her, but I don't think that necessarily has to be just one. Skullgirls?
Yeah.
One of the gimmicks is that it's a just about all female cast. I believe that game has 2 playable male fighters.
Hmm.
I'm also not drawing them with specific shoes because, that's a gimmick of the game. They would all be wearing socks at the start of the game. Let me just make sure her height is where I want it to be compared to the others. Yeah. She would be like there. She's short. Like, not even just short because she's a girl, but short for a girl. Which I know is another overly feminine trait. But I think that's part of the fun of, like, she's small, feminine girl, and then fucking kick-ass out for blood, you know? Not a new subversion to the point where it's basically a trope in and of itself. But still. And her name would be Lil Sis. The stream has basically hit its stopping point. I timed the fact that I want a 4-character minimum on purpose with that, actually. Probably going to want to come up with more characters. I don't think I want the cast to be only 4. But this, I think, will be my minimum with a good stat diversity. And you probably could guess that stat-wise, I'm kind of taking an inspiration of the Mario, the Luigi, and then the big heavyweight and the small lightweight. to get the bare minimum of gameplay diversity, you know?
Man, why is Toad so big?
Also, I did not make races explicit for the characters. I am gonna put thought into that. The only one that I have a pretty solid idea, because I gave him dreads, is this guy. So.
Hmm.
I'm not sure where I'm gonna go with ethnicity or hair color for the rest of these. I'll figure it out.
I mean, honestly, probably do a similar thing to the Dyson Men. Where
I'm not
various-
gonna say it explicitly.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna, you know, think about how I want to do this in specifics. I mean, I'm not at the point where I've even colored these characters yet, you know. Yeah. Would it look better if I put this here, or is fake perspective not having the other ear visible better for this? I don't know. I'll figure it out. So, I don't know how much I should work on this off stream. If there were viewers here, I would ask them. If they're like super invested in me doing this mostly in front of them so they could see how it develops. This isn't the kind of game where I'm worried about like people getting spoiled on what it's going to be like or something. This is something I can be totally transparent about. So I don't know if people want to see every step of the way on this development, or if me working on this in the background and then them catching me in the middle of steps is preferred. Oh, hello, Superfame. Oh, I love Skyward Sword. You know, just for you, I'll stay here for just a couple more minutes just to explain for you what the concept is and where I'm at before I wrap up. So, I am going to be developing games on this game on my Thursday stream. I don't know if you've ever played the battle mode attached to the Super Mario All-Stars version of Mario 3, but it's basically like a revamped arcade Mario Bros. With like new features, items, and like a strictly competitive focus. It's not just like you can compete with people, it's about competing with people. I discovered this mode like a year ago-ish when playing with friends. We just were fucking around trying out each version of Mario Bros for no particular reason. And then we played this, and I didn't think it would be any different than the NES version. No, it's not like the Super Mario Advance version. That's what's crazy. It is totally unique. I would go into more detail, but genuinely, Super Mario All-Stars Mario 3 specifically is a unique version of Mario Bros. That plays differently and is competitive oriented. And it's actually really fun. I've had the idea floating in my head for a while of basically fleshing it out with more playable characters with unique abilities, more items, more stages, etc. I came up with ideas of what this theming would be, what items there would be, abilities characters have, stats, across the board. It would have like a urban theming to it, like, a graffiti, like, punk aesthetic. And it would be called Da Brothers, which is an inside joke for my friends when we first played the game and we were saying we were hooked on Da Brothers as the quote from the Mario Super Show opening, because we were having a lot of fun playing Mario Brothers. So, calling this Da Brothers, and so all of the characters would be named as a play on that concept. I talked a lot earlier about specifics of what I want to do with it and goals, but I just sat here and got the bare minimum of 4 playable characters I would want in the game. I might make more. I probably would want to make more, but this is the starting point, and I would not want to have less than this. And I was just wondering if people would prefer if I did every bit of the development on stream, so it's a totally documented process with everybody being able to see it and be involved, or if I did work on the side so it progresses faster. Maybe they're not just sitting there watching me sit there trying to write code or something and like wondering what's going on. Especially if I'm not being entertaining or quiet. Like how much people really would prefer this is on stream. I don't know. I'm about to call it for today. But I'll do this again next week on Thursday as long as nothing gets in the way. Just yeah. Trying to think if I'm forgetting anything noteworthy to bring up. God, I talked about a lot of shit earlier. But yeah. It makes sense to me. I figured people might prefer having it progress a little faster and having the streams be a little more interesting with things I can talk more about. But I wasn't sure if people were like, no, I really want to see like every step of this, or I don't know. I don't have an audience to ask. You are the most consistent viewer I have right now. So, closest thing to a consensus I'm gonna get. So, yeah. I think I'll work on this a bit and then see where it goes from there. Still definitely early on. Very conceptual. I don't know. If you want to see any of the stuff I talked about or things I looked at, the whole VOD's going to be on YouTube, obviously. I don't know. Up to you. Other than that, I think it's time that I called this. I'll see y'all next week. This is the last stream of this week, and I think it went pretty well. I've enjoyed this. You got anything to say, Red?
Nope.
Cool. I'm gonna end the stream. See ya, dudes. Bye-bye.